Hi,
All
everybody.
right.
My name is Gerhard Schwartner. I'm the founder and publisher of Selling Power magazine and the host of the Sales 3.0 conference. It's my pleasure and privilege to introduce my co-host, Warren Senna. He's the CEO of the CRO Collective. Welcome, Warren.
Hello, Gerhard. Thank you. It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me. And hello, everybody.
We have two goals, and if you want to chat with us, you can do that, and we can see your questions. We want to make this interactive, but the twin goals today is to talk about the Sales 3.0 conference, and Warren and I will do a fireside chat on the topic of, is your company CRO ready? And that event will be September 7th and 8th in Las Vegas, actually Henderson, which is 18 miles from the Strip. And it's at the Green Valley Ranch Resort. So when we on stage, Warren, what are some of the things that you like to share with CEOs right now that is important for their future and their success in their business?
Okay, that's a good question. So one of the first things that I think about when I talk to CROs is I ask them to tell me what actual job they have. Because most CROs actually aren't chief revenue officers. And it's not an insult to them. It's not their fault. It's not like because they're not good. It's because they weren't hired as CROs. Many of them are hired to run sales. Right. And
Right.
that's the first thing I want to know, because when I'm speaking to a chief revenue officer, it's important for me to understand the leadership conditions that they're working under, because it gives me a lot of insight into what they're dealing with. So I get one of two answers, right? Well, actually, I say three answers. Well, the first answer I get mostly is, yeah, I oversee sales, and I have some, interactions with marketing and stuff, but really my job is to grow the sales organization. And then the other answer I get is let's say, in my view, the correct answer, which is, yeah, I oversee the entire revenue operation. All the revenue functions report into me. But that doesn't happen as often as I'd like. And the third answer I get is something in the middle. Well, I run sales and customer success, and we have a CMO. So they're sort of like in the middle,
Hybrid.
And yeah, somewhat of that. They don't think of it that way, of course. So I'm looking at that answer through my own lens, right? But this is the way I'm evaluating what's going on. And I can
Right.
usually tell quite a bit. Like I sort of am, humbly, I'll say this as much as I can. I'm a little bit like a doctor, a surgeon. I can look at a patient for like about 10 minutes and go, all right, it's emphysema or something like that. And so it becomes very quickly evident to me what it's likely that particular person is going through.
Right.
With a couple of other factors, like how big is your company? And that is really related more to the stage that they're at, because these two vectors are really important. One is the stage of the company, like where they're at, whether they're like a startup or they're a growth company, and then where they are in a cultural leadership. And those two things are extremely telling for me about likely what they're experiencing.
Right. Well, I think there's another way to look at it. One approach, a strategy, it's an old strategy, is divide and conquer. And that's how you arrive at a siloed operation. And then you have that new COO strategy where you have a unified system where the CEO is responsible for sales, marketing, and customer success. So they're able to get their team to speak with one voice.
That's correct.
And I think eliminating silos is eliminating a great barrier to growing the company.
Well, that's the whole point, right? I mean, the reason why I asked this question is because a CRO is, in fact, should be anyway, hired for that purpose, what you just stated. It should be, the time has come for the natural silos that are created at the beginning of a company to be dissolved.
Right.
So that a cohesive organization can be created. And you can't do that without some human or some one person responsible for overseeing it all, because as soon as you have more than one, you have just another silo, It just sort of negates the entire
I think that the other thing that you said earlier is really fascinating, where you talk about the growth phases of a company. And David Ciccelli has written a book, The Growth Factor, where he divides companies in 4 stages: 1, entrepreneurial; 2, growth; and then 3, where things begin to stall a little bit, where the costs go up and sales are no longer at 20 or 30 or 50% rates, and then the final enterprise state. But
Yep.
I think the CEO conversation should really happen at stage 1, correct?
To some degree, I would say that there should definitely be the thinking should be there from day one.
Right.
And the reason I say that is because if I'm thinking about this from day one, it will likely impact the decisions that I make as the company goes through those unavoidable stages, so that I can stave off some of the issues that usually companies will encounter if they don't have that thinking. But the implementation of the operationalization of the CRO mindset should be at the point at which I think, from based on that David I know well, those 4 stages should be somewhere between the growth and the stall phase,
Yeah.
because that's when the silos have been created and there's complexity that requires alignment. And so I think that that's sort of an important part of the whole thinking is, I think that it would be, I'm being somewhat, pragmatic here. Sure, I guess if I were to state maybe some of the vision of the CRO collective would be that all companies think this way from day one, right? A world in which companies think this way from day one, sort of thing. But I don't think it's possible. I don't. It's like asking a teenager to be thinking about being a grown up when they're, it's just not. Sure, I'd like it, but it's very few do that. Most teenagers are just teenagers, and then they pay the price as when they become grown-ups, and that's mostly what companies are. I'd say 95% are much like adolescents that go through natural rebellious stages and have behaviors that are characteristic of that, and then they reach a point where those behaviors outlive their usefulness and they have to readapt, and that's where reorganization is required. That's sort of how I look at it.
But there's something else that I want to mention. When people go to your website, they can go and do a complete CO assessment. Why did you create that?
So there is a point at which there's a couple of, let's say, inflection points. Like, why would somebody go take that assessment other than me asking them to, right? I mean, and then they do it, right? But if they're just on their own, like, they probably want to take that assessment because they're experiencing certain things that that assessment would help address. Well, maybe it would be like, let's call it like an initial exploratory action. So, like, for example, if I'm having chronic pain, let's say in my shoulder, and I think it'll just go away. I slept weird, or something. But then it just doesn't. Like, it lingers, and then I find actually that it's getting worse. Then there might be a point where it's like, yeah, maybe I'll just wait it out, And then there's a point where it's like, damn, I can't do certain things. So now I'm inclined to want to do some exploration. So that's usually when my assessment is usually encountered. Someone's like, all right, So what I'm saying is that the assessment is designed to, let's say, ascertain the revenue operational maturity of a company. And their questions are all yes, no questions. The intent of the questions, if you will, or the dynamic of it is a healthy company who's being honest, a healthy CEO, let's say, who's being really honest, would be able to confidently answer yes to every single one of these questions. That's a very healthy company. In order to be able to say yes to those questions, it would be require that company have a lot of things in place to make that possible, right? Most companies are around 40 to 30%. Some are around 60, depends. Usually when I see people answer those questions, I get back our 60 or 70. They're usually guessing or they're wishful thinking. And they're tough questions, and they're intended to reveal areas where the company needs to reevaluate why they can't say yes to this. It's really what it's about. It's like, why
Yeah.
couldn't you say yes? What would you have to do? What changes would you have to make in order to be able to say yes to this question?
Yeah.
Right? So every time you said no, each one of those no's is an opportunity to evaluate why you said no. And then we together can uncover what's underlying that no,
Right.
so that we can apply a new process or something like that
I,
to
I
get
think
you
it's
to a yes.
yeah, it's a great tool, and that gives me a segue because we have used your tool to assess the effectiveness of a CRO for our CRO of the Year award, which started in December last year, and we had an amazing ceremony with a rocket launch in Orlando. And we have our second annual CRO of the Year award, and there's a QR code on top that you can scan and apply. Warren, tell us about what is the benefit for a CRO to apply for the CRO of the Year award?
Well, look, I mean, we're not yet, and I'm again, being very straightforward here. We're not like yet this sort of governing body. We're not like the CRO council for the globe
Right.
or something like that. But we are a organization that has a very unique, and I'd say, frankly, almost singular focus on the chief revenue officer. And we've been doing this for a long enough time that our ability to ascertain CRO effectiveness is about as good as you're going to find, based on our understanding of the role. So that assessment is just a part of it, right? I mean, if a CRO, and again, this is all dependent upon them answering the questions honestly. I mean, you can say yes to them all, whatever. So we're assuming that people that take this are really interested in becoming healthier, right? They want to get the right assessment, and they're going to be answering them honestly, and they'll say no when the answer is no, which I would suggest it would be the smartest, wisest way to approach this. And then what we do is okay, so great. If everyone answered this questions honestly, somebody with the highest score, while this isn't the only criteria, because there's others,
Right.
but this would be an indicator, a good indicator that this person has, and I guess the other factor too is like that this person has been a CRO for a long enough time that they've been responsible for those things happening. If they just got the job last week and they say yes, well, they inherited a good thing, and they're probably not responsible for it. So we want to see somebody who was there for at least a couple of years on the job, I'd say at least 2 years, and is able to address these questions effectively. And that would then say, okay, this person's a candidate, because if those two things are true, then I want to look into this more and learn more about what they did to make those things happen and what their oversight is. And if you're able to rise to the cream of the crop on that particular group, you're really effective. I mean, you're someone whom, first of all, it's nice to say, pat on the back, et cetera, but more importantly is, you now can command some expertise in the marketplace by that virtue, because this is astringent. It's not an easy thing to achieve. So we'd like to think that the people whom we select represent best in class chief revenue officers, not based on superficial things, but based on the results that they produce and how the alignment evidence is there in the work that they do.
Yeah, it was a very exciting moment, and we have a COO award reception at the Sales 3.0 conference on September 7th. And I hope that anybody who is listening to this, who is a COO, will take a chance on that and fill out the form, apply. You also get a completely free VIP all access pass to the conference for free. So and if you want to bring somebody on your team, you can get a second free pass as well.
Yeah.
It it reminds me when the CEO of Calyx came on stage, and he has been at it for over 20 years, and he was very touched by that, and the company issued a big press release, and you can actually go to sellingpower.com and look at the awards and look at all the profiles of the award winners. And I hope that you'll take a step forward and you want to be recognized. And what we are trying to do is honor the best in the profession, create a community, and also network and learn from one another. And that's why we call our conference CRO to CRO Summit. Warren, I think we want to wrap it up. We don't want to keep anybody too long. Any final thoughts?
Well, no, thank you. Thank you for including me in this. And I look forward to the live event in Las Vegas. And for everyone that's joined, thank you very much. And if you're looking to reach out to me, I'm easy to find. Warren Zena is my LinkedIn, and you can DM me there, or Warren at the CROcollective.com. And I'd love to hear from you. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Warren. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye-bye.